Oh, uh-oh.
I
I
just
hope
clicked
people
go
didn't
live.
hear me mocking them.
No. I just
Okay.
it has a little. It has like a test window, and it looked kind of odd. So I checked the kilobyte thing, megabyte stuff.
Yeah, it just
be
popped
sure.
up for me.
So how does it look?
That.
Everyone in the chat, let us know. How does it look? Give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or a yes or a no. That'll do too.
Looks
Hey.
A-okay. Can I give you a thumbs up? I'm in the chat.
Oh, you know what? They are gonna hear me mocking though, because it's like back a bit.
No, they won't. They won't hear
Where
it.
it started. Oh, they.
They won't hear the Age of Clams thing.
Oh, okay.
Age of Clams.
Yeah.
Oh no.
All right. I think we're ready, right? Ready to just start?
Yeah, I might be
Yeah.
ready.
All right.
Is
Hello.
this episode 126?
It is episode 126.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh dang.
All right. So, yeah, I think this will be the quickest start we've ever had. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 126 of the Hylian Gamescast. Today we have Chiblima returning. We have Capt Bergerson.
How?
Oh, your mic cut out there.
Oh no, that's okay.
Yeah. And today we're going to be talking about a new 2D Zelda game rumor, and as a discussion, we're going to be talking about what we would personally like to see for a 2D Zelda, whether it be a remake of a specific game or something else. Then we're going to be talking about some Skyward Sword HD and the Amiibo, our thoughts on that, and then we're going to get into some questions, and if we have enough time for the third topic, we're going to be talking about Ocarina of Time HD and our hopes and honest expectations for the Zelda 35th anniversary. Jeez, I wish it was the 25th. I was so young back then. All right, so starting off, a new 2D Zelda rumor. We've heard from almost everyone that basically every 3D Zelda game is rumored for some reason to be remade. I think the most likely is Ocarina of Time. And then if Ocarina of Time comes, it's almost illegal not to do Majora's Mask. And I don't know about Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Maybe they'll be after Skyward Sword releases, we'll get an announcement or something. But for a 2D Zelda, whether it be a remake, a remaster, a new Zelda game entirely, some people have talked about wanting a Lego Zelda game or a paper Zelda game. Choobs, since you're returning, if you have an idea in your mind, what would your idea the 2D Zelda game be? For them
The
to
last
release
2D
next?
Zelda game that we got, was it
Link's
the
Awakening.
remake?
Right, Force
Yeah.
Heroes? Link's Awakening, I guess.
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I was thinking, like, if the last one was a remake, it'd be nice to see something new. Like, I think that the remake was really well done. But, yeah, it wouldn't hurt to see, like, we've seen some really good fan-made trailers of doing, like, a paper, like, Legend of Zelda. Like, that looked awesome. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing something new. I can't really think of any 2D games that I'd like to see them redo at this point, because I feel like Link's Awakening was the big one for me.
All right.
Maybe Link to the Past is the only other one I could think of that I'd want.
Yeah, but we had a Link Between Worlds, which was sort of
the same thing.
pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah, different but the same. This is like totally left field compared to any other 2D Zelda games, but like, you know how they had Mario 35? I could totally see them doing a Zelda 35, and that's sort of like a remake, but not. So it's like Tetris 99, but then like playing through Zelda dungeons. You kill enemies, and it sends the enemies over to other people, and it could get really, really competitive. It could be really fun.
That would be hard.
It would be hard.
Those are not easy games.
No, not at all. So that could be really fun. I don't think we'll get like a Zelda Maker like we've got Mario Maker, just because I think like we got the panel dungeons or the chamber dungeons, sorry, in Link's Awakening, and I think that's the closest, other than the Zelda update for Mario Maker. I think that's the closest to like a Zelda Maker we'll get. Because like there's a lot more to go into a dungeon than there is into like a Mario level. Nothing against Mario levels. I do love Mario, but I don't see it happening, unfortunately. But I could be wrong. But yeah, that's maybe a cop-out answer. Zelda 35. It could be fun but cool, but really hard, but cool but fun.
I think that's a cop-out answer. I think that's totally viable.
Cool.
So Nintendo recently updated their online service. We've seen the first big plus to come out of it was a bit of an update for Super Mario Party, getting a better version of online multiplayer. With Triforce Heroes being the 3-player Zelda game, usually Nintendo has sort of a record of having 4-player Zelda on their multiplayer games. And they said the reason they cut it down to 3, which I think they said it actually began as a 3DS port or remake of Four Swords Adventures. But the online wasn't great or good enough to have 4 players, so they cut it back to 3 and ended up making an original game from it. So with their online service updated, if it is as good as I'm hoping, I would love to see a new 4-player 2D Zelda game, because we had tons of fun when we were playing Four Swords Adventures online. So
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So and then there's always that quote that comes to my mind from Aonuma and Miyamoto, where they said they wanted to evolve what we thought of 2D Zelda. And there's only a few ways that you can do that. I think A Link Between Worlds kind of already did that, because it was a 2D Zelda game, but to solve a lot of the puzzles and boss fights, you had to think more in a 3D way. Instead of like top-down 2D, moving up, down, left, and right, you could go under or over stuff, or you could go into the wall, the camera would come down, or a cutscene would show, and then the camera would drop down, and it would look like a cool little 3D Zelda game. So unless they do something where they do more stuff like that, almost like they kind of reused that idea with Mario Odyssey, where Mario could go into the wall, turn into a painting, and you'd have like a little 2D level. So if this new Zelda game did something like that, to where it instead of just the camera going 3D when you go into a wall, if it went back and forth, like you pressed L or ZL or something to change the camera from top down to 3D, to where you had to go into 3D to solve certain puzzles, I think that would be a really cool feature to have. And but maybe that would be a bit too complicated if they added it in with the multiplayer. But one or the other is my choice. If they're not doing anything new and innovating, then just the multiplayer. But if they are doing something innovating, then I think that would be the way that they're going to go. So yeah.
You know what that reminds me of, Jesse, is there was a Paper Mario game on the Wii that I had. I think it was just Super Paper Mario is what it was called. And it had a mechanic like that, where it was like a 2D side-scrolling Mario game, and then you could like change the perspective, and it would turn into a 3D, like a 3D perspective, and then so like blocks that would look like they're lined up would actually be like shifted or spaced apart or that kind of thing.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and it was actually a really neat concept. I think that's a pretty underrated game. It's very different from other Paper Mario games, just because it doesn't have like any like turn-based combat or anything like that in it. It's all like real time. It's more like a Mario game than a Paper Mario game, because it's all 2D platforming, etc. But that mechanic was interesting, and A Link Between Worlds and Mario Odyssey both kind of remind me of that, because there is that sort of perspective change. Although in those, the Paper Mario, Super Paper Mario, and A Link Between Worlds, I felt like those design choices were better implemented into sort of the entirety of the game, because you could do it like at any time, anywhere, whatever. Whereas like Odyssey, it was very scripted, just like this one wall you can do it on. It was very like very segmented and limited. So if they were to do something like that, which I think your idea is super cool. I would want to see them expand on it even more than like what Odyssey did. But that's just me. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Odyssey did it just like sheerly from a nostalgia standpoint. Like I think
for
it was that first moment of going in and like hearing that 8-bit music and going, woo.
yeah, and how like the music for any level would transition. But I think it works well on Odyssey because it's in like just such short little nuggets. So yeah, so it works. It doesn't feel like tired out very quickly. If that makes sense.
My thoughts on Odyssey is that the Mario team spent like a decade doing nothing but looking at Mario, and then they took a break and looked at all the Zelda stuff that's been going on, and then they implemented a bunch of that into their next Mario game, because you have the wall merging like A Link Between Worlds, you have the talking hat like Minish Cap, he can transform into different creatures or enemies, almost like Majora's Mask. You transform into like a Goron or a Zora, and it's like all of these different Zelda mechanics, but with Mario. And I think it's really cool. But our next topic, are you guys ready to move on?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So Skyward Sword HD and the Loftwing Amiibo that was announced Tuesday. We have a question for our Zelda Mailbag that goes along with this, but I think we'll end up answering it during this, so I thought I would go ahead and get the question out of the way. From Scotty, who asks, do you think Skyward Sword HD will have any quality of life improvements in the base game? For those watching that don't know, that's basically the faster sailcloth in Wind Waker HD, the iron boots being put on your sea items instead of having to equip them by pausing the game and going back and forth with it.
Right.
Or Twilight Princess had the Tears of Light segments cut from 18 to 12, I think. So stuff like that.
Yeah, or there's a dedicated button just to transform in Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
As opposed to having to talk to Midna. It's just
Midna,
like just a little thing to shave just like those couple seconds off, but
okay.
Yeah.
I've not. So in the new trailer, the first dungeon in Skyward Sword, is it not called Skyview Temple?
Yeah, that's the first dungeon.
Is it ever referred to as Forest Temple?
No.
Because
No.
the new trailer, the new trailer
sorry,
for Skyward Sword HD, when Link is at the bird statue, refers to that dungeon as the Forest Temple.
Does it?
And
Hold
I've
on,
been
gotta go
confused.
up.
Have they changed the name? Is this some kind of, I don't know, like,
Okay.
am I
So
from
it's the part where use the amiibo again to return. Hold on.
He's at
It
the
says
statue.
Turn to Pharaoh Woods. Hold on. At the statue in the dungeon.
No, in the bird statue outside, I believe. And I'm like, I always thought of them as memes, but with like everyone talking about the Mandela effect when you get in those rabbit holes on YouTube, I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh! Yeah, it says Forest Temple.
yeah,
What?
yeah, because I seen that and I was like, am I from like a different Earth where it wasn't the Forest Temple?
In the audio, do they call it the Force Temple, or do you think maybe it was like an editor error when they're editing the video and they put that script in?
It's
I
in
don't
the
know.
text when it pops up and says like return to Forest Temple or go to the sky or whatever it is.
Yeah, what it is like when in the base game of Skyward Sword, anytime you go to a bird statue, it'll have like the header that'll say like what area you're currently in. And I think in the original game, it actually just refers to it as the Deep Woods.
Yes.
That spot. And but then you can use it to. Then there's the options, return to the sky, etc. But instead of Deep Woods, it just says Forest. It says Forest Temple on there, and that's that. Here, I'll just pause it right here. Put this up. This is my phone. Focus for a second there. Any day now, it's gonna focus. Forest Temple.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
That
really
ain't right.
weird. Yeah.
That's not right. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it's been about a year since I last played Skyward Sword. but I'm pretty sure in the original game it just calls that place Skyview Temple. Unless there's a localization thing. Maybe is it Forest Temple in Japan, and then it's either there's a localization error, because sometimes when they re-release games, they'll re-release it with like a certain version in mind. Like the Super Mario 64 that's in 3D All Stars is like the improved, like a re-released improved version that was exclusive to Japan, so it's technically not the North American version. And they had every chance to fix a typo that's in in-game text, and they didn't fix it. But I don't know. I'm going crazy now. Hold on. I've gotta look this up.
Get going, Jesse. You broke him.
The only other two things that I know was changed from Japanese to English for the original game was hero mode in Japan was called spicy mode.
Right, like Pikmin.
I don't even know what the English name of it is, but the Japanese name is the Silent Realm.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called in English?
Yeah, in Skyward Sword, it's the Silent Realm. That's
then
right.
maybe it's Spirit Realm in Japan.
Oh. No, I think it's the Silent Realm.
Because I know it was something, because I was writing for Zelda Informer, and we kept on talking about details that was being translated from Japanese, and I kept on referring to it as the name that I learned from its Japanese name. And then when it came out in English, I'm like, this isn't right. What's going on here? They changed the name. But yeah, so the Loftwing Amiibo, to go on with it while Daniel's doing some research.
I'm doing my due diligence here.
Yeah, so the Amiibo isn't going to be normal price. It's about $10 more at 25 US. What's the Canadian price on the Amiibo? Have you guys checked?
I haven't checked because it's not up for pre-orders anywhere.
Oh, all right.
At least not anywhere I've seen. I've been checking like several times a day, so...
Yeah, so the effect is somewhere between the Furor's Wind and the Travel Medallion from the DLC of Breath of the Wild, to where you can pick a spot, whether it's inside a dungeon or outside a dungeon, and it'll warp you to the sky, and then you can be in the sky, or you can be in the bazaar on Skyloft or somewhere and use it again, and then warp back to inside the dungeon where you were. So a quick way to get out and get back in if you're running low on hearts or potions, or your shield's about to break, or even if you have to keep going back and forth from like the Lineru Desert to Skyloft because you're farming straw for an upgrade, you can do that.
Right.
That makes it a lot faster. I was hoping now the trailer or the details or something says this is the only amiibo for Skyward Sword. Some people think that it means that it's the only amiibo period that works with Skyward Sword. Other people think that it's the only new amiibo releasing specifically for Skyward Sword. If other amiibo do work, I was hoping they would do something similar to Breath of the Wild, where they drop the chest with the stuff. Well, not necessarily
Just put
Wolf
Link in every game.
but like a chest would
Let me have a dog.
a chest would appear that would let you it would give you like some of those collectible items as like a bonus for tapping the amiibo. So I was hoping for something like that. I don't know if we're gonna get it. And then a lot of people are mad because not only is the amiibo like $10 more, but it's something that a lot of people think should have already been included in the game, since we're paying full price for it anyways. Similar to like with Link's Awakening, you got they added in the new Dungeon Maker for free. So people are thinking they should have given you this for free as well. So Daniel, you start this time. What's your thoughts on all of this? And do you have any other quality of life improvements that you would like to see?
All good points. First off, update with the Skyview Temple thing, real quick.
Yes.
Later in the trailer, when you use the amiibo to return, or it shows that, this is again not out of focus, Fi does say Skyview Temple, which is weird. But I was looking in the nomenclature sections of some Zelda wikis, and I couldn't find it being called Forest Temple in any other regions. So, I don't know. That's really weird. But Quality of life improvements that I actually talked about this on my stream extensively last night. The one thing I really, really want is there to be like a mode, maybe even if it just happens in hero mode, that shuts Fi up. Just because the game is so heavy on the hand-holding side of things. And I'm not saying that there should be zero hand-holding in any games or anything like that, but the thing is that there's a lot of redundancy with its hand-holding. There's a lot of times an NPC will tell you something, and then you'll walk outside, and then Fi will tell you exactly the same thing you just heard. And you're like, I know, shut up, I'm going. Or things like that. Or she'll tell you something, and then 10 minutes later, she'll tell you the same thing again, etc. And it's very heavy-handed, and honestly makes Navi look like a saint. And it's just one of my points of contention with the game, where I'm the kind of person who I don't like to just being told what to do in general, let alone in a video game. And I constantly feel annoyed with the dialogues that just constantly coming up when it's especially when it's redundant. So it just a way, like if you say you were playing on hero mode, for example, most people playing on hero mode already have beaten the game, or someone who's really familiar with the game. If it's your first time playing, you're probably not going to pick the hard mode, right? So I think even just, I'm not saying remove it from the game entirely, but even just have the option for players to have it, just to turn that off, just at least reduce the amount of dialogue in there. And also, this is something that Zelda does with a lot of its remakes. It did this with Ocarina of Time 3D versus the original, Wind Waker HD, etc. The text scrolling speed for dialogue is often sped up in those remakes, and I think that's the way to go. Always speed up the text speed, because if someone's a fast reader, it's a drag to like wait for the text to scroll along. And if someone's a slow reader, the text box will fill, and they can just finish reading it and then press the button to go to the next text box. So it's better for everybody. Just speed it up. Yeah. Those are my suggestions. Oh, also the item pickups. We've been saying that for ages.
Oh my! We
only need to learn about it one time.
Skyward Sword feels especially bad for that too.
Skyward Sword's the only one that does it. Where pretty much every other Zelda game,
right?
You get a new item or a material or something, and you learn about it, and then that's it. Skyward Sword's the only one where it's like every time you save and quit the game, and then you boot back into it, it'll give you all the item descriptions over again.
Like, I've never picked up rupees before. Exactly. I've just been poor this whole time.
It's like, oh, I found an amber relic. It's my 40th one. Let's read about it again. And see, Breath of the Wild will give you an item description, and then if you want to read it again, it'll show it to you in the pause menu if you go to it, and that's totally fine if you're curious and want to read it again, but you shouldn't have to. Yeah, so anyways, that's my big one.
So with the text thing, I don't remember if you mentioned it or not, but spicy mode or hero mode, it lets you, like one of the characters even tells you when you're talking to him in front of the sword training place. He says, like, since you're already familiar with everything playing on hero mode, that it lets you skip over a lot of the text.
Right.
Did you mention that?
I did not, but I mean, there's a lot of text that can just, honestly, that I think they could just remove out of hero mode. Like, if you play in hero mode, just like half of Fi's dialogue can just be removed. Yep. And this is not so much a quality of life thing, but dowsing, especially. Because there's sections of the game where Fi will be like, you have to douse for this thing. Use the dowsing ability. And you're like, I don't want to, because I want to actually like explore and look around. And she'll come out every like 5 seconds and be like, douse already. Would you use your dowsing ability?
Yeah.
And the icon will like be flashing and beeping until you actually use it. And it's so annoying. And I hate dowsing. And I'm fine with having like a radar feature in games or things like that. But honestly, the way dowsing was implemented is good for certain side quests. But during the main game, when you're like, the thing with Skyward Sword's overworld layouts is there's lots of very like narrow linear paths and stuff, right? It's just dowsing. It just feels so annoying and redundant, because often, not always, because there's some side quests where I think it is really useful, but often when it's shoved into the main quest, it's like this is the path I'm already walking on. Why do there's no other path to walk on. Why do I have to use the dousing ability to tell me to walk on the only path that is available? Like, it just, and I think it's okay if it's an option. If Fi comes out and says, you can use dousing if you're having a hard time. If you don't know which way to go, you can use dousing. That's fine. But for her to constantly be like, do it, douse, just douse already. Link, you need master, you have to start dousing right now. I hate it so much.
All right, 2 things, Daniel. 1, from everything you're saying, to me, yes. I mean, I don't know about 𝐓𝐷s, but to me, with all the years I've known you, from what you just said, it sounds to me like you want a bonus dungeon like Twilight Princess, but
that would be great.
All dousing.
No,
all dousing. Only dousing. And 2,
oh my gosh.
We talked about the dousing thing because we talked about the quality of life stuff on Nate's podcast on his channel Nintendo Prime, and one of the things that came up was the dousing, and the idea that I thought of is instead of making it to where it shrinks the number of like 𝐾𝐽s that you have to find, which is a really great word to say. Everyone just say it, 𝐾𝐽.
𝐾𝐽?
𝐾𝐽. 𝐓𝐷s?
They're like kiwi with it.
I'm saying it, 𝐾𝐽.
Okay,
Kiwi.
cool.
Yeah. That's the sound they make.
So instead of just finding like 2 or 3 𝐾𝐽, instead of like 5 or 6 or however many there are, it lets you do dousing, but instead of having the sword in front of you in first person where you're walking really awkwardly, it lets you, like, the camera just stays normal, and either your map will like ping on the direction if you're facing that way, or like it'll still do the thing around the screen, like where it covers up the whole screen and it shows with the arrow when you're pointed towards it, but in 3D. So you can still like run around and stuff while you're doing that.
Dousing could be made obsolete if they give you something that was not in the original, a mini-map.
That's true.
The original Skyward Sword has no mini-map. I can't think of many other Zelda games that have 0 mini-map. And for some reason, they didn't give us one in Skyward Sword. And I think that what it makes me think of is recently I was streaming Pikmin 2 and I wouldn't shut up about it during that stream. But the way Pikmin 1 and the way Pikmin 3 handled their radar systems is if you check the map, there's pings on the map about things if you're searching for them on the radar. But Pikmin 2 gives you an annoying radar that it's just like based on the radar sound.
Annoying.
And it just beeps constantly. And it's like, you know, the Sheikah sensor in Breath of the Wild? It's like that, but like they just chose a sound that was like way more annoying. And that's dousing to me. Is like, if I'm having trouble finding something, I feel like the right way to do it is a radar system where if I could pause and check the map, or an optional clue or something that I can turn on and off, like in Breath of the Wild with the Sheikah sensor, you can always turn it off if it's annoying, then that's great. But then Pikmin 2, you're just like, bing, 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 constantly, and you're like, I know! Even after you've already found the item and you're just bringing it back to your ship, and it's still just like the radar is droning so loud, and it's so annoying. And that's dousing, it's that radar feature. Except you also have Fi telling you constantly to use it. I just want to be able to turn things off and find them. Zelda and exploration in Zelda is really fun to find hidden secrets. But having something that's like blaring in your ear constantly telling you which way to go kind of admonishes that, like just removes the joy of finding those things for me. Because you're just following a trail. You're just being led along a string instead of actually finding it. And like I said, I'm not against it being optional. If it's there because you're stuck, then that's great. And again, I think Breath of the Wild handled it well because the sensor you can just turn on or off, etc. But it's like it's not even like it's a crutch or convenience. It's just shoved down your throat and mandatory. So I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll get off my high horse now. I'll stop preaching.
He's angry. Okay, what about What about the amiibo thing? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, you went on of that and didn't mention the amiibo.
I didn't. I just complained about dousing and
so much anger towards all of these features.
Guys, I really do say this as someone who likes Skyward Sword. I swear.
Imagine dousing for 900 Koroks.
I would die. but the amiibo looks really fun. I think the feature is cool. I think the statue itself, the figure, looks gorgeous. It looks really detailed. It might be one of the best looking amiibo.
Mr. Din in the chat says Age of Calamity DLC news just dropped.
Okay, hold on. Let's pull up the old tweeter.
Did we just get trolled?
The old tweeter.
Let's see. I see Mario Golf tweet here.
HMK is live with Smash Bros.
I don't see any. I certainly don't on Nintendo's Twitter, which would be where it would be, would it not?
Did you check Nintendo?
Yeah, people are talking. Yeah, I see it.
You gotta check Nintendo.
All right, so it says expansion. No, it's on Zelda Musu, whatever. Expansion Pass will be on sale from May 28th, Friday. In line with this, we have decided to sell a product that includes the main story and the expansion pass. Main story plus expansion pass set product, 10,420 yen including tax. Expansion pass alone, 2,500 yen including tax.
The
Guardian Army.
That's different than the ancient armor in Breath of the Wild. Similar, but different. This looks cool. The sword. Look at the sword that goes with. It's different than the. What I'm gonna guess is like this is. I guess like an earlier iteration of it because it looks like a little more. There's like straps and stuff holding this stuff together here, like holding the sword together. It's held together by straps and cords and stuff. Mm-hmm. So what makes sense to me, canon-wise, with this is the ancient armor is built by Robbie, right? And this maybe is like his first attempt building the ancient armor, and this is what he came up with. Versus the ancient armor in Breath of the Wild, where he's had 100 years to
they
like
call
perfect
it the ancient
that.
heartbeat,
you know what I mean?
And guardian of recollection.
Very interesting.
So they posted 3 tweets. The first one was the one that I just read. Then they on tweet 2 they say the name of the content to be added in the expansion path has been decided. First, Ancient Heartbeat. Second, Guardian of Recollection, and then colons Guardian. Additional content for the expansion pass. The first is scheduled to be delivered by the end of June, and the second is scheduled to be delivered by the end of November. Please wait for the follow-up report for details. Daniel.
I decided to hit the translate tweet thing for that image, or for the tweet with that image, and I was just like right on the money there. Costume for Link, prototype ancient weapon. The weapon for Link, prototype ancient weapon sword. Which I guess it'll probably just be shortened to like prototype ancient sword. So yeah, I guess I was right on the money there. This is Robbie's like, he hasn't had the 100 years to perfect this in this timeline, right? So, so this is his prototype, which actually looks more feasible because Link can actually see out of it, see his face here. He has at least one eye out, and the one in Breath of the Wild it just covers his eyes.
No seeing.
Yeah. So the costume and the weapon are both prototype ancient weapon.
Yeah, and there's no ancient shield. It's just a shield of the mind's eye instead on there, and very interesting. But yeah, there's like there's like the sort of the wrappings that usually go with the stealth guard armor.
Yeah,
are sort of on. And
I was gonna say it looks like it's mixed more with the like it has more of a Sheikah approach to it than like a big bulky armor thing.
Yeah. Wow, this is very cool. Yep. Wow. Thank you guys in the chat for alerting us to this. Wow.
Yes. Thank you. Oddly enough, I said I thought we would get a picture, like just a tweet drop picture for Skyward Sword's Amiibo and a trailer for the DLC, and it was flipped.
It was the other way around.
Yeah.
We got a trailer for the Amiibo and a tweet for the DLC. But this is even what we said a couple weeks ago about the Age of Calamity stuff. Is when we had Andy on, OG Mac.
Yeah.
Mac, yeah.
Saying like, yeah, it's entirely possible that for this DLC stuff that they're just gonna announce it via tweet. And what do you know? Here it is. Here it is on Twitter.
Is that a reputable source though?
This is the official Hyrule Warriors Twitter account, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's all in Japanese. It's under Zelda Muso, but that's the Hyrule Warriors name in Japan. Also, I think in Japan the name is like Zelda Muso Apocalypse, which sounds super cool.
That is pretty cool. I like that.
But Age of Calamity is a good name too. Don't get me wrong, but.
All right. Since there's not much to talk about with that, you want to go back to what you were saying about the Skyward Sword thing, Daniel?
The amiibo. Yes, the figure itself looks really detailed and really, really beautiful. And I think it will be right up there with my other favorite Zelda amiibo, which is the Wolf Link one, just for the level of detail that's on it. I'm not sure about the size of it. It looks to me from the pictures they posted that it's larger than other amiibos. I don't know if anyone's seen anything about the size of it, but that's just the impression that I've gotten from it. But pardon me.
No, you're good.
Obviously, there's a lot of controversy about the amiibo functionality, and I partially agree with some of the controversy, partially not. Like, I'm not mad about it. Like some people are. Some people are very mad because for those who are watching are like, what's going on? The function of it is that it's basically Farore's Wind from Ocarina of Time. It's like a warp magic that you can use the amiibo for to fast travel up to the sky without having to visit the bird statues, right? But and it works even in the dungeons and outside of the dungeons, and so it's just like a warp point. You just fast travel up to the sky and then back to wherever you warped from. And that's neat, but people are really upset because they're like, quality of life changes shouldn't be locked behind amiibo content. That sentence I agree with, but after ruminating on it a bit, because that was kind of my initial knee-jerk reaction too. I was kind of like, I feel like that should just be built into the game itself, not amiibo. But amiibo content, in my opinion, should always be optional bonus stuff. It should never be anything integral to the game. And after thinking about it a bit, I really don't see this as something that's going to be an integral game experience, because the thing about the warping system, first of all, I find that I don't have to travel back and forth too often during my playthrough of Skyward Sword. The only time I could see this really mattering is if I was like in a pinch in a dungeon on like hero mode where there's no heart drops and I need out of potions or something like that. But regardless of that, I think for the most part, those bird statues that you would normally use to get to and from the sky are honestly, there's enough of them. They're everywhere. They're basically like every location or every major location in the game, there's one there. They're like as common, well, there's not as many of them, obviously, but the map's not as big, but they're like as common as a shrine. There's the same people who complain about like Travel Medallion being DLC. It's locked behind a paywall for Breath of the Wild. And I'm always like, that's not that big of a deal, because ultimately, anywhere in Breath of the Wild you need to go, there's usually a shrine close enough there. There's so many warp points in that game. And that's the same thing for me, for Skyward Sword, as there's so many of those bird statues everywhere that, like, if I didn't have this function, I would, like, if they never announced this amiibo, or this function never came into being, no one would be complaining about the lack of fast travel or anything like that. We wouldn't be thinking about it, because it's just, it's not that big of a deal, ultimately, in my opinion. It's a nice extra feature, maybe. I actually think that if they wanted to lock something behind amiibo, that they could have come up with something cooler, but they didn't. But alas, that's not the case here. But yeah, I don't think it's a game-breaking thing, and I don't think it's something that, like, you can't live without if you're playing this game either. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's my my take. Everyone, like, just need to take a deep breath, simmer down, and think about, like, the last time you played Skyward Sword, if you played it, because not many people did. It sold as one of the worst selling Zelda games ever. But if you played it, just think about, like, how often were you, like, deep in the middle of a dungeon and thought, I need to go shopping right now. I want to go back up to Skyloft and buy myself a new potion or whatever, because for the most part, the game's not that challenging. and very generous with things like its hearts. But also, I don't know, like a lot of the store. There's the store that's, I don't know what it's called, but like it only restocks after you finish certain dungeons as well. Like they'll only get new stock in after you sort of hit certain story points, anyways. So I don't know. It just feels like such a non-issue to me. Do you know what I mean? But if you really were in the throngs of a dungeon, like you were in the depths there, and you need to go back, there's even statues throughout some of the dungeons that will warp you to outside the dungeon, and then there's a statue right outside the dungeon that you could use to warp up to the sky. Like every dungeon, there's a statue right out front of the door. So I don't know. It just see, even in the chat, they're like, literally never, rare, never actually. Yeah, see, you guys, big brain time. Yeah, so that's my spicy hot take for you.
All right,
Spicy hot take.
𝐵𝐵𝐿ima, do you have a spicy hot take?
I said the exact same thing. As far as I'm concerned, we're talking about a very beautiful amiibo. I think that the amiibo looks great. I'm not personally going to buy it because, as you see behind me, I don't have a single amiibo.
No, me neither.
And like to Daniel's point, like absolutely, there's not been a single time that I've been in the middle of doing something in a dungeon or somewhere, just anywhere in the game, and been like, you know what, I really need to go to Skyloft right now. And so, yeah, I think this is a cool feature, absolutely, but I don't really feel like this is like something that's detrimental, that's locked behind a paywall. At the end of the day, like, an amiibo is just kind of like a fun collector's item that sometimes will do something cool for you in a game. And that's exactly what it's doing. Although I had posted that on Twitter, and there was one take for it that I thought was really interesting, and it was my buddy Acoustic Harmonia. And he had mentioned that it would be really good for speedrunners. And so I could definitely see where that would be super important to speedrunners, but again, I think that's another good reason for this to be, you know, a reason why a speedrunner would purchase the amiibo. Right?
I feel like the argument against that is that speedrunners are not like the general audience.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very, very like
so niche.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Like I am 100% with you, Daniel. I think it's cool. I don't think it's the end of the world, and I'm very confused as to why so many people think it is, because we've gone years of people saying like Skyward Sword's the worst game, or I've never played Skyward Sword, or wow, that game sucks. Why are motion controls a thing? So
true.
Buy the amiibo because it's pretty.
And
because you're a collector, not because
it's very pretty.
Right?
For the speedrunning thing though, like I could even see like there being like, you know, like currently there's already like glitchless speedruns or glitch allowed speedruns or 100% or any percent speedruns and that kind of thing, right? And so like I could see, okay, well, if this is gonna really make a splash on the speedrunning scene, which I don't actually think it is, because when you're speedrunning, often you're trying not to go back and forth to places as much as you can. You're trying to just get through everything as quick as you could. And like, so if you're trying to do the whole dungeon in a speed run, usually you're going to get to the end of the dungeon, not leave halfway through and then come back, right? So I kind of see that as a bit of a moot point. But also, I could just see them splitting it, like Amiibo allowed speedrun and Amiibo not allowed speedrun. That very well may already be a thing with Breath of the Wild because of Amiibo drops for items. But I don't know, like, yeah. People in the chat are talking about scalpers, and yeah, I hope we can get them before the scalpers do. Hate that.
Scalpers are...
Scalpers.
They're bummers. They ruin everything for us. Even the Skyward Sword Joy-Con.
Ruined.
Everything.
Jesse.
As far as, quality of life things for Skyward Sword, I can't really... I think, yeah, getting Fee to be quiet would be nice, but I didn't really have a lot of problems with that game. I have enjoyed it pretty much every time I've played it. Alright, Jesse.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're thinking.
So, I can't really think of anything except if they gave you, so the amiibo's there, but for the people that don't have the amiibo, instead of having like 3 flaps with your Loftwing, if it gave you like 5 or 6, or had more of those, because they obviously knew that it was an issue of only having 3 flaps on your Loftwing, because they randomly put those portals everywhere that shoots you really far. So it's like, they knew it was an issue. They knew Wind Waker had an issue with not having a faster way to sail back and forth, even though you could already warp. So since this is also a way for us to warp, added on to the way we already had, then it would be cool if they did sailcloth thing to where maybe they had more of those portal things, or they gave you more flaps. So that's or even if there was like if it let you use another amiibo to automatically refill your flaps, then that could be interesting.
Cool. The only thing is, I feel like doing that, like if you're in the middle of a game, like it would almost be faster to just let it recharge than to like go like grab your amiibo and then like scan it in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that is true.
You reminded me of another one.
Yeah.
Though, she's just leaving. She's like, I'm so tired of listening to Daniel complain about this game. No. There's the way the traveling in Skyward Sword
your mic cut out.
is. Oh shoot.
Yeah, it's your old mic or your built-in mic, not your good mic.
Yeah, actually, hold on. My mic came unplugged there, so it just defaulted to the wrong one here. Let's. Oops. Okay, how about now? We good?
Yeah, you're good. Nope, no, you're gone now.
Ah!
No, there you are.
Okay, you can hear me, but now I can't hear you, so that's just great.
Hello?
Hold on one sec.
Okay, Hello, Mr. Chair. Hello,
Hi,
not Mr. Chair.
Sorry about that.
Oh, now you sound like a robot.
Oops. Okay, so... Oh, no.
Yeah, like your audio's coming across slow.
Slow?
Like, just exit out of Discord completely and then come back in. I'll be here. Don't worry.
All right.
There's only 186 people watching. No big deal. So, everyone in the chat, let us know what you would like to see changed in Skyward Sword. And if you would like to listen to the audio versions of our podcasts or our interviews with like the Breath of the Wild voice cast, then you can go to iTunes or another podcast service and like on Google and download and listen to the audio versions of the podcast. So that would be really great. And if you leave a review, we will read it at the beginning of each new podcast. So if you want to shout out with your review read, you can leave a review on the iTunes. So Daniel.
Yes. Do I sound better now?
Yeah, you're all good now. See,
okay,
what happened, Chubes left and it broke everything.
It did.
And she came back and everything's fixed.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
So Daniel, we didn't even get time to talk bad about her because your mic messed up while she was gone.
I know. It's the best part of the podcast. It's fun. Anyway,
Aw, dang it.
So what were you saying, Daniel?
You reminded me. Yeah, you reminded me. The way that sort of fast travel, if you'll call it, there's not really any warping in the game, right? But the way it works is like you go to a statue and you fly up to the sky and then you drop down to wherever you want to land in. Sounds good in theory, right? But currently, like in the base game, in the original version of the game, if you wanted to go into, say, another area, like say if you're in Faron Woods, you want to go to the desert, right? You have to go up and fly all the way over there and then drop in, and that's fine because it's a pretty big distance. But if you're like, say you want to go from one part of the desert to another part of the desert, you have to like go up to the sky, land on your bird, jump off your bird, and land back down where you want to go. And I think it would be nice as just like a little quality of life tweak to allow just regular warping between statues, even if they just play like an animation where you go to statue and you're like warp to somewhere, even if it's just within that sort of area. Like you wouldn't be able to go from Faron Woods to the desert, but maybe like 2 spots within Faron Woods that are both statues or 2 statues, and you just be able to just select those. And so it would just show you like whoo, whisking up to the sky and then like landing down with the sailcloth at the other one I just feel like that's something that would make that a little bit easier, but I don't know. It's a thought. It's a thought. It's just like one of those tiny little things that kind of annoyed me a little bit, but I didn't think was really that big of a deal ultimately. And if they didn't implement it, I wouldn't be butthurt about it. So
Scotty in the chat, who we read his question as part of the discussion, says he wishes the Hylian shield would be easier to get. So if they if there was a certain amiibo that gave you the Hylian shield, that would be cool too.
Another thought on that. So the side quest.
Daniel has all the thoughts.
Spoilers, if anyone's. I do. I have so many thoughts.
All the thoughts.
The current way you get this Hylian shield in the original game, is through the Thunder Dragon Trials, right? Which is a cool sounding name. It's basically boss rush mode, right? Mm-hmm. But the rewards don't stack in the original version. So if you're going for completion, there's both a heart piece and the Hylian shield, which are vital. I would say vital items to get there. Mm-hmm. Which means you have to play through like a certain amount of boss fights, claim one of the rewards, quit out of it.
Yeah, you have to purposefully lose. Don't
all
you?
Of them. Yeah. You don't have to lose. You just have to quit. Like you just have to tell him. He's like, okay, if you quit now, you can get this prize, or if you keep going, you'll get this other one. So you have to just like choose, okay, I'm quitting now. And then you have to start over and do a bunch of boss fights again to get the other thing, right? So if you want both of those rewards, a heart piece and the Hylian shield, which I would say are both worthwhile rewards, you basically have to do this side quest, this boss rush mode, twice. And that's kind of annoying. I kind of wish maybe they could just remove one of them or just make them stack. Like you get each reward as it goes, maybe. But I don't know, like that's just like it just feels like almost like an oversight to me, because you want to get both of those things. Or at least I want to get both of those things because I'm a totally completionist. And I sorry, I just one last thing and then I swear I'm gonna shut up.
No, you're good. You're good.
In Skyward Sword, there are the medals, which are sort of like, I don't know, like charms in Hollow Knight, or like they're like temporary, like, you know, perks basically, right? That you can get. And there's a heart medal that gives you a bonus heart, sort of like yellow hearts in Breath of the Wild or whatever. But it's like a bonus heart container is one of the medals. Without that, just by means of heart containers and heart pieces, technically you cannot complete a full 2 rows of hearts in Skyward Sword. And so you have to waste a adventure pouch slot using that medal if you want to actually have both rows filled out, which means sacrificing a different useful item like a bottle or something like that instead. And that annoys me. Just like not having a full 2 rows of hearts, I can't, just my brain breaks. Like there's some weird pedantic thing in the back of my mind that just cannot have that, which is why I don't go for full stamina. I go for full hearts in Breath of the Wild, because even though I know full stamina would be more useful, I just can't have not full 2 rows of hearts. Just something in my brain will not allow it. So I would like that to not be. They could just add more secrets in the game, add more heart pieces to find. Problem solved. Maybe a way to upgrade stamina too with a medal instead. Oh, yeah. Upgraded stamina would be really cool, because in Skyward Sword it's really limited. You will only get 1 stamina wheel in that whole game. You don't get to upgrade it. So, nope. Yeah, those are some thoughts. I'm so sorry. I talk way too much. Then again, this is a podcast.
You're
literally all about.
We only have one more topic anyway before we get to the Zelda
Mailbag. You've taken Jesse straight off of his throne, and you're like, I am going to be the chatty one today.
I guess so.
So, Chiblima, do you have anything to add?
No. That's it. All I got.
All right. So, really quick, if we can, Twilight Princess, when it released before Breath of the Wild, its special amiibo connected to Breath of the Wild by giving you Wolflink. Mm-hmm. If this Loftwing amiibo, like if they come out during the E3 and they're like, hi, everyone who pre-ordered or is looking forward to getting this cool amiibo, surprise, it also has this other feature that connects to Breath of the Wild 2. what kind of feature would you like to see? My completely out there, only in my dream amiibo function for Breath of the Wild 2 would be exactly what the Wolflink amiibo did, where it added Wolflink. So the Loftwing amiibo would add a Loftwing. But again, that would be completely out there. So, yeah. Almost as crazy as adding a motorcycle that you can feed wood.
That's unheard of. I can't believe. No, Nintendo
I can't believe you
that.
waste valuable wood on the motorcycle. I just put bokoblin teeth in it.
And there was the
I got
video.
so much.
The video Nintendo Prime posted yesterday saying that Skyward Sword would be really. What was the term, the phrase he used? Daniel?
Vital.
Yeah,
to
really
Breath
vital
of the Wild
to.
2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows?
Okay, I had a thought though. Like, even if it's not a full rideable Loftwing, I know Tube has, but Jesse, have you ever played Borderlands, the first one?
I have not.
Okay.
No, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I have.
Wait, you
PlayStation
have.
3.
So I had it on my Xbox 360 back in the day, and the character I always picked was the hunter class character, who's this, like the sniper guy, and he had a pet bird, and the bird was called Bloodwing, and I loved Bloodwing.
It's a very middle name.
He's the best bird. He's the best bird. Okay, so
Loved.
you could basically use that bird to. It would be like a companion character, but it would help you in combat as well. And there was like a cooldown time to using Bloodwing. You couldn't spam it or use it too much. Although when you like level up through the game, it got pretty OP. But even if it's not a full rideable Loftwing, but like a bird companion like that you could use, or even you could think in Twilight Princess, there's like the grass, there's like the reeds you could blow into that would call like a bird, and you could just send it out temporarily for like one thing. That's almost like a really limited version of that idea. But something even as limited and small as that could
like
be
the
really
basket
cool.
thing, where the monkey has the baby basket.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Or there's a part
grabbing the
of
chicken.
Death Mountain, and yeah, and something like that could be really cool. Even if it's not like a huge full-size Loftwing, because Loftwings are in game big enough for a person to ride on.
Two people to ride on.
Yeah, exactly. So
Nate made the joke, like how you can attack the Cuckoo and they'll chase after you. If you could attack the Loftwings and then a bunch of Loftwing chase after you.
oh my gosh.
Gosh.
Oh man. A bird that big would be. Oh my gosh, Gibbs says a bird companion. You mean Rivali?
Yeah, I think Rivali would be a little bit upset if he's just like chilling there and he's doing his thing, and then you summon your bird companion that you fly on.
Yeah, that would be weird, because it's like, here's bird person that can talk, is very intelligent, and then a relative, maybe? Something that looks like a possible relative that's just a bird with a bird
Giving the
brain.
hamster cage to the hamster characters in Animal Crossing. It's not right.
It's hilarious, actually. It's what it is. It's like giving. Actually, one of my favorites is the cat villagers. If you give them cat grass, they actually super love it. They get super happy about it. So, but
He would want to teach the Loftwings how to shoot a bow.
yeah, he's like, no, use. What do you mean you don't have weird bird wing feather fingers?
Phalanges.
Yes, Rivali's fingers confuse me, but I feel like Rivali would not like the Loftwing, but Teba might, like see something in it, like a.
They have their own loft wings to ride.
They don't need to.
What if they're tired?
Actually, maybe they would, and people would be like, well, "Why do you need to ride a Loftwing? You can fly." And then they'd be like, "Why do you ride a horse? You can run."
Oh, we have a super chat
Zoom.
from
Nintendo.
Yeah, just not saying a thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Throwing
Nintendo.
us $4.99. If
I
you have a question.
Yeah, if you have a question, we will answer it. If I
There
said
it
it
is.
properly, it should be popping up on the YouTube video as well, saying that he did it.
Nintendo's question is, he typed it in. Hey guys, could we see a return to either Link or Zelda having an instrument in Breath of the Wild 2 learning melodies, and it be tied to function in the game, like unlocking puzzles dungeons, transportation, etc. So sort of you think Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask style of. I would be down for that. Again, Skyward Sword wasn't big on playing the harp. The harp sounds beautiful.
Worse.
Like playing it is like literally strum back and forth, not actual notes like playing the instruments in the N64 games. And so, if it was something a little more, even the wolf howling in Twilight Princess was like better. It was at least like 3 bars of 3 lines, but I think the N64 games really nailed it with the instruments, and I don't know. It's just like it's just a really cool mechanic, and the songs get like so catchy, and they get so stuck in your head. You know, like I don't know. It's super fun. I would love that. Especially actually warping instead of like, say if you don't have the Sheikah slate and we're bringing back like more traditional things, then like you could bring back warp songs or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like there's so much unknown right now for like Breath of the Wild 2 that I can't imagine it. It's not there. It'd be cool, but I can't imagine it.
Yeah,
I don't even know what instrument Link would play.
It's like whenever
Aonuma
and Miyamoto showed off that one long segment of gameplay, and they were like, yeah, it's going to come out this year sooner than your game, blah, blah, blah. They had the whole thing back and forth where they were teasing each other. And it's like 90% of the stuff they showed you was completely changed in the actual game. So it's like there wasn't even really a point to the stuff they showed you because there's no... there's like a shield bar that's no longer there.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. It's like silver and it goes across underneath the hearts. And then like a lot of the areas, like there's cliffs where there weren't cliffs, there's flat areas where there weren't flat areas. So it's like with the one trailer that we've seen from Breath of the Wild 2, because Nintendo likes to change Zelda games so much while they're in development, all of that could be completely different whenever the game actually comes out. So all this like all the stuff that's based off of this one single trailer could not even... Yeah. Like the first trailer they showed off for Zelda Wii U, where the Guardian comes and tears up the bridge going over the creek. Like, that's not even in the game. Like, nowhere in the game does a Guardian tear up a bridge. Or is a bridge even able to be torn up or destroyed?
Not any bridges, per se.
Yeah.
But Guardians will fight you.
Yeah, they'll destroy you and your shields.
Yeah.
Gibbs says, I'd rather get a miniature pocket-sized Cass, a musical instrument.
He just wants a whole Cass to himself.
Yeah.
So do you put Cass in a bottle like the Deku Princess in Majora's Mask?
Oh, wow, yeah.
You just...
How does that work?
Uncork that and just dump Cass out.
Play a funky tune whenever you need it.
It worked.
Oh yeah, I see it. That's neato. That's cool.
Yeah.
It worked. I'm done.
Gibbs' set up his message popped up on the screen. On the actual YouTube video. I set it up so that the people that super chat, their stuff will be on the actual YouTube videos as well. It was an idea I got yesterday from Nate, because Nate had everything where it was scrolling when people would donate. And so I had it to where it pops up. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, there it is.
Do you have anything else, Daniel?
I'm sorry, I'll shut up. I'm good.
No, you're good. Choobs, what kind of connectivity would you like to see? From the Loftwing Amiibo from Skyward Sword 2.
Oh! Sorry, we went so off topic. I didn't even know what we were talking about.
Just stuff.
Yeah, I feel like because it is very much a companion type amiibo, that if they have something added to Breath of the Wild 2, it has to feel like a companion in some way. So I agree, like they would have to incorporate the Loftwing in some shape or form, but I'm not really sure how they would go about it. So definitely, I don't think that they'd include like riding a Loftwing. And the more I think about like the Rito and then Loftwing existing, it makes me very uncomfortable. So I honestly don't know. I don't know. Now I'm thinking about just how the Rito are gonna feel.
Yeah. All right. So our next topic. So all of the rumors coming up for Zelda 35th anniversary, nobody knows for sure what's going to happen. To me, the most likely remake remaster that I feel we're going to be getting, and that's just based off of Grezzo's track record and how they've always had like 2 or 3 Zelda games for each of the Zelda anniversaries. And the only game they've announced in the past 2 years is the Amiibo, no, the Miiverse, what was it called? Miitopia? Yes, Miitopia. So they have the Miitopia, which was a game that was already made and could have been a quick port to HD, because that's basically what they always do, is quickly port stuff. And even if that did take a long time for them to do, they have like 2 or 3 other teams that are also working on games. So for the past 2-3 years, what could they have been working on? And we know at least one team finished something, because they just a few months ago recently hired for what we assume is yet another Zelda game. Because whenever they first hired for Link's Awakening, they basically mentioned all the same stuff, and the person needed to be experienced with Unity or Unreal Engine 4. Unreal Engine 4 kind of backfired on them, because Link's Awakening, apparently a lot of people thought it had technical issues with some frame dips. Nintendo said that they would fix it before launch, and all the same stuff was there. Some people couldn't notice it though, but it seems that made them go back to Unity. So they're hiring for what they were originally hiring for, and it's worded the same as the other Zelda thing. And in the past, usually after they finish a Zelda game, they just start on another Zelda game. So that's why I think it's Ocarina of Time. So if a new remaster or remake does get announced for the 35th anniversary, other games might come too. If Ocarina of Time comes, I joked earlier that like it would essentially be a crime to release Ocarina of Time and not Majora's Mask, like around the same time or a year or so later. So with that in mind, I'm saying Ocarina of Time for sure. Maybe Majora's Mask gets announced alongside it, or maybe it gets announced like a few months later or at another time. But those are definitely coming, and then maybe Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, but I think that would be like a few months later that it gets announced. Like I think Skyward Sword's basically like a floodgate that after it releases and it's sold most of the copies it's going to sell, because almost everyone who has a pre-order for Skyward Sword, if they announced pre-orders for Breath of the Wild 2 and a confirmed release date, would automatically move their pre-order over to Breath of the Wild 2, or if they announced Twilight Princess, which a lot of people like a lot more, or even Ocarina of Time, then tons of people would move their pre-orders over to Ocarina of Time. Mm-hmm. And they would probably still keep their Loftwing Amiibo pre-order, despite not getting the game. But anyways,
that Amiibo.
That's my personal thought on everything. I think there's a good chance we will get everything, but the most likely being Ocarina of Time. Chiblima, you go first this time. What are your honest opinions, or whatever, on the 35th anniversary or the E3 Direct and Zelda?
So I really agree with what you're saying about not wanting to do anything before Skyward Sword comes out. It's a game that, wasn't really loved. The sales were very low for this game, and if we announce anything before it, then they're going to just lose traction. So I agree, it would be sometime after. Ideally, I feel like if they're gonna do something Ocarina of Time related, it would be really nice if they did kind of like an anniversary bundle. Because if you think about it, if they re-release Ocarina of Time, we're gonna see it retailing at your average Nintendo Switch price, probably. Like, I don't think they're gonna bring it down. So I'm hoping that in a perfect world, they do it in a way where you get more than one game. So maybe similar to how they did, like, it was Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. I think that would be a really cool way to do it. So maybe if they do, 2 3D games and then maybe a 2D game that we don't have a port for would be a good idea.
So sort of like the GameCube collector's disc back in the day.
Yeah.
Which had Zelda 1 and 2, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and a demo for Wind Waker.
Ooh.
The cool thing about that is people just think of it as Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. But at the time it released, it was the first 2 games and the 2 newest games. So it was the 2 oldest and the 2 newest. So like if they did that now, we would be getting Link's Awakening and Breath of the Wild and Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 on a bundle if they gave the two newest and the two oldest.
They're not going to do Breath of the Wild.
I know, but I'm saying
they wouldn't put a game that big in a bundle.
That would be like the direct comparison because it was the two newest and two oldest.
Yeah.
So.
But if they were to go something like that, I would put, instead of Breath of the Wild, keep Link's Awakening and then maybe a Link Between Worlds in there.
Yeah.
And that could honestly be a really fun bundle, actually.
Oh, like a 3DS collection, because they'd all be from Grezzo.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the other thing. We need a 3DS collection or like a 2D game collection, because for me, if I want to go back and play these games, a lot of them I don't have access to unless I emulate it, and Nintendo doesn't like that.
Well, Zelda 1 and 2 and A Link to the Past at least are on Switch in some form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So those three games, because they're already on the Switch Online service, I personally don't see them packing into any bundles. But following their trends, I honestly see the Wii U games or 3DS games that you couldn't already play on Switch as being very likely as well. Yeah,
I don't see that though. Like in a perfect world, yeah, you would get like basically it would be like the Grezzo collection, where it's like wait, did they work on A Link Between Worlds? No, it was Triforce Heroes they worked on.
Triforce Heroes they did. I always forget Triforce Heroes exists.
So it would be, but I was thinking it would be like the Grezzo collection because it'd be like all the 3DS Zelda games, but it would be, well, they did the Four Swords Anniversary. If they gave that online thing,
right?
Because they did
that online could be really fun.
Yeah,
could be really really fun.
And they've already added online support to other like NES games and stuff, so they can do it, but will they? No. So I like in a perfect world they would do that, give you Ocarina, Majora's Mask, and A Link Between Worlds, or Triforce Heroes, 3 of those games, or all 4 of them. But we know that like they're not, like if they did, that would be like a $200 bundle. Like they would be selling it, like in this world, they would be selling it for $200 because they would know each on their own would be $60. And then they would be like, okay, we'll take 10 off of each game. So you get the 4 games for basically $50 at $200. But
yeah, but I mean 3D All-Stars was not priced up that high.
Yeah, but that was like a Nintendo 64 game.
USD,
and,
right? Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean those Grezzo games are basically N64 like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time were N64 games. They were remade for sure, but
and with Majora's Mask, depending on if you're asking Daniel or not Daniel. No, basically, there's like half of the Majora's Mask fans and half of the newer fans. There's a big division on like whether you like the new eyeball dungeon boss monsters or if you like the way they're meant to be.
It's the 3DS.
Give them eyeballs.
The thing is, like, I think I've been accused of being blinded by nostalgia for my love for the original version of Majora's Mask.
Your Majora's Mask video series, where if everyone watching or listening on iTunes, where you should leave a review, Daniel on his YouTube channel, Captain Bergerson, has a series where he goes through Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Now he's on Wind Waker. He goes through all of the dungeons. Gives like a step-by-step walkthrough, but he also gives lore and theory stuff and comparisons to previous games. And with Majora's Mask, his dungeon series was the longest per dungeon because, like, out of the 40 minutes, 38 minutes was him saying, I don't like this. It should be like it was in Nintendo 64.
I wouldn't go that far, but...
Why do we fight Twin Mold the same way that we fight Bowser in Super Mario 64, where we just spin them around?
Just getting roasted by Jesse over here.
I think I brought up some good points. Rick told me, RMFH told me that I swayed him, that I actually changed his mind about Majora's Mask through my videos, which is a very big compliment, because Zelda fans don't often change their minds about things that they love. But
it's the fishing ponds.
I think it's like some of the changes to, let's say, Ocarina of Time 3D, for example, like, great. You know, they streamline certain things. They make the iron boots and equipable items, that kind of thing, right? Those kind of changes, or the changes made to the Wii U versions of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, right? Like, those I would say are good changes. When you streamline something, you know, you faster sailing, sure. You make things easier to equip. You make maps easier to read, or things like that. Okay. Iron Boots, again, is the big one for Ocarina of Time. It's when you remove features or replace them with ideas because you think that your players aren't good enough to, or aren't skilled enough to do this game or to beat the game. That's where I take issue with it. But I'm gonna get off my high horse. If people really want to hear me get into it and I was gonna say a bad word, but complain and moan about it, they can watch my videos. There's like 2 hours of worth of Majora's Mask videos where I do that. So.
All right, Tubes, did you get to finish what you were saying?
Yes.
All right, Daniel. I
Yes.
know you were just talking about Majora's Mask, but what are your honest thoughts or expectations on what we're going to be getting for Zelda this year?
So, I mean, specifically Zelda, because okay, I'll say this is off topic of Zelda, but as far as E3 is going, I just have this gut feeling, just this feeling in my gut that we're going to learn Metroid news. I really do. I think that. It's just sitting in there. It's like this voice. Last year, I was like, no, we're probably not going to see Metroid, but this, I don't know, just something in my gut saying, we're going to get something. And I think it's just because of how long Metroid Prime 4 has been in development. And then even, I think we were talking about on previous podcasts and stuff, but that's just, I don't know, just this feeling I've got.
There was the person who sent the one emails about Breath of the Wild mentioned Metroid Prime 4.
But even before that person reached out to you, I don't know, it's just been building up because I keep seeing bits of news about Retro hiring, you know, certain people, like they're pulling in. There was like a character designer from like God of War or something, and they were like pulling in all of these people to work on this game. And the more of these little nuggets of info I hear, the more I keep thinking that we're gonna see some Metroid. And then there's 2D Metroid rumors out now that's gonna be a thing as well. So
and the 2D Donkey Kong.
And 2D Donkey Kong rumors made by the Mario Odyssey team, which could be super cool, but is not Donkey Kong Country apparently. So, but as far as
Donkey
Zelda
Kong
goes,
City.
There you go, Donkey Kong World. No, but
Galaxy.
But as
think bigger,
as
Daniel.
far as, oh my gosh, think bigger bananas, guys. Come on.
Bigger bananas.
As far as E3 Zelda 35 stuff goes, I don't think the big Zelda blowout's going to be necessarily E3. I'm still saying, I know I've been saying it for months on our podcast, but I'm still saying I think they're gonna give us some info. We're still gonna see Zelda there, but I don't think it's gonna be all Zelda, all E3, right? Because they want to diversify. There's lots of other IPs that Nintendo has that they want to sell, right? So I think like September we'll really get our big Zelda 35 blowout, maybe late August, September, around that time. But as far as Zelda 35 stuff goes, I know in the past, Jesse, that I've been a big doubter about Ocarina of Time coming to Switch. Basically, since we started this podcast, you and I have been saying, like, on opposite ends of that argument, where you're saying, I think it's going to come out for this anniversary, and I've been saying, I don't think it will.
Yeah, for a long time, I thought it was going to be for the 20th anniversary.
20th? Yeah, oh, yes, yeah. So
wrong.
for its 20th, not Zelda's. I was like, we're way past that.
Yeah,
we're 35.
I'm confused.
This has not been going for 15 years. No, but sorry, I got confused. But yeah, I know we've kind of hashed that out and we've argued about it and stuff, much to many people's entertainment. But I'm seriously coming around to it. I don't know, this year feels really different to me. And again, it's just something in my gut just is telling me, like, I thought that we're gonna see something, despite all the it's partially because of all these rumors and things that are flying around. But there is seriously a part of me that's thinking, like, you know, Nintendo knows everything they put on Switch sells better. Any Wii U game that they had that they moved to Switch, it way outsold its Wii U counterpart. Every new entry of a game that they put on Switch outsells like its entire franchise. Animal Crossing on Switch has sold better than every other Animal Crossing game combined, apparently. Pikmin 3 Deluxe on Switch sold better than any other Pikmin game, including original Pikmin 3, et cetera, right? Like, you keep going with it.
Yeah.
Every Switch game outsells its previous generation counterparts. And so considering the reputation that Ocarina of Time has, a well-warranted reputation, it totally earns the praise that it has. It's way ahead of its time, and it's a wonderfully written game. It feels like such an obvious, like too obvious a choice. Part of me is like, it's so obvious that Nintendo would never do it. That was kind of almost like my argument before, but I don't know. I seriously think we might see it this year. Maybe it won't release this year. Maybe it'll be out by March, because they're gonna tease out a bunch of things as part of the 35th anniversary thing. But and there was a rumor around that it was gonna be like a virtual console thing only, like an eShop download only for like a limited time. I don't think that either. I don't think it's gonna be like 3D All Stars, where it's just the N64 version, like not even polished up or anything. Because with Super Mario 64, like honestly, they did not do very much with that, right, for 3D All Stars. But I don't know. Just I think they darn well know the sort of prestige that Ocarina of Time has, right? The reputation and the love that we have for it. So I don't know. I just feel like something's coming. And then, like you said, if they're going to bring out Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask will be close behind it. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be a bundle. I'm kind of leaning towards not, but I think it could happen. And I'm still hopeful about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because I think the HD versions of those games are really the definitive versions. And it'll be very funny if Twilight Princess were to come to Switch, because then it would be 4 console generations in a row that Twilight Princess, GameCube, Wii U, and now Switch. And that would just, there's something kind of amusing about that. So I'm on the fence about the Wii U games, or about the I guess technically the GameCube games, but the Wii U versions of them coming to Switch. I'm on the fence about it, but I still think those N64 games, I'm leaning towards them now. I know I was a doubter before. I was totally in the negative before, but this year feels different to me. So
now you're a believer.
Now I've said the same thing 4 times in a row, so I'm gonna stop.
All right. Well, Daniel, with Ocarina of Time, would you like to let everyone know what one change that you would like to see to Ocarina of Time would be? And then we can go on to the Zelda Mailbag. Yeah, just one
change. Well, I guess that change would depend if it were the 3DS version that came to Switch, or the N64 3D version in some way. So if it was the 3D version, the 3DS versions of those games, the visuals, everything seems a little too almost like soft and squishy, and nothing really has like weight to it, if that makes any sense.
Can I say something really quick?
But that's like physics engine issues, right? Yeah, say something
okay,
really quick.
So something...
Or not quick.
It just popped in my head out of all the stuff that you were talking, all the stuff you were talking about. If Nintendo paid Grezzo to spend their time, manpower, all those hours of work, all those developers, to remake or remaster Miitopia,
right,
then you would think that Ocarina of Time would surely also be in development or already be made. Like, they would look, because Nintendo, everyone likes to joke about how they're always in it for the money, like putting things on limited release so they'll sell better and stuff. So it's like, in the world where Nintendo loves money so much, they would release Miitopia at a discounted price, but not release what's like, when it originally came out, was the most pre-ordered game of all time, and still looked at by many to be one of the best games of all time. Like, in what world would they do that with Miitopia? but not
Right.
Ocarina of Time. So that was the thought that I had that made me laugh a little bit. Sorry.
But
Continue,
sometimes
Daniel.
Nintendo does weird things. They're totally a wild card. I mean, like who
Truly.
would have thought that Famicom Detective Club would be like something they're really pushing right now? It is. Like, if you look at their Twitter, they're constantly posting about Famicom Detective Club.
I like my hair too. Thanks, person in the chat.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, Daniel, one change. And I know how much you love
Yes,
it, but it cannot be a second fishing pond.
No, fishing. I think Ocarina of Time has exactly the right amount of fishing in it, because technically there's already two. It's the same one, but as child versus adult Link, you get 2 prizes. But honestly, it's just like the sort of, like, I really don't think they should do the 3DS version. I think there should be something of a design choice marriage of the two. Like, there's certain enhancements that the 3DS version had, such as, like, so the iron boots, that kind of thing. And there's some, like, visual, aesthetic improvements that I think look nice, right? But overall, like, all the character models and Link and the way he walks, the way he moves, like, there's this weird general weightlessness to everything.
He's
Everything's
got
a
the
little
weird
floaty.
jump thing.
Yeah, his jump looks so weird and awkward, like he's never jumped before, and he's nervous about it. And everything just feels a little too, like, soft and squishy, if that makes any sense. Do you know what I mean? And not like a design choice like Yarn Yoshi is soft and squishy because he's made of yarn, because he still has kind of the appropriate level of physics and appropriate level of squish when he jumps and he squishes down a little and things like that. Like, and that all works in that game. But for some reason, those 3DS games, I think the physics feel weird to me. And in the N64 games, Link is a heavier character compared to, like, say, Mario. In most Zelda games, not so much Wind Waker, but it works for Wind Waker because it's a cartoon and he's little kid Link and it's fine. But, like, most Zelda games, Link has weight to him when he moves. He's generally, and it makes sense, he's carrying around all this stuff, whatever. But I just feel like that there's just this general weightlessness to everything in the 3DS version, like we're playing with toys. And not in the way, like, even Link's Awakening has this toy aesthetic, but Link still has weight to him. So it's just weird. But that's like the physics of the game, and I almost feel like that's too big of a thing to change, and I don't know, like, how they could fix it. I'm not a game programmer or designer or anything. But so I guess if I had to really choose one thing only, and it couldn't be that general complaint to have with it, it would be there's this oversaturation of this brightness in the 3DS version that I do not like. Like, in the N64 games for both Ocarina and Majora, there's a lot of darkness in those games, a lot of very dark areas, and not too dark, like, not like you can't see, but
I think that may have been because they thought a lot of people would be playing outside in the sunlight, and it would need to be brighter to compensate for not being able to see the screen brightness.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say, actually, was cool. I think they brightened it for the 3DS version because it's portable, and so if you're outside, they want to make sure, like, people can play it still reasonably. Mm-hmm. And that kind of does make sense, but it just everything looks kind of washed out, and everything looks too, like, almost like a lot of things in those 3DS games look too clean. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of grimy feeling stuff in the N64 games. And I mean, we could talk about, like, the removal of, like, blood and stuff in the 3DS version. I don't like that really either. But just, like, everything just generally doesn't feel as grimy and dirty. And I feel like the grime is just as much a part of the adventure, if that makes any sense, So, I don't know. Just there's some visual changes like that brightness, that oversaturation, that I would definitely like to see sort of reined in if they were to remake it for Switch. But that was way too long and drawn out an explanation.
No, you're good. So now we can do the Zelda Mailbag. So for those who don't know, our Zelda Mailbag, you can submit your Zelda questions on the iTunes review. You can leave them in our Discord that you can join. We have an entire chat just for the Zelda Mailbag questions. It can be Nintendo or Zelda related. Most people just give Zelda questions. That's why it's called Zelda Mailbag. And if you're a Patreon supporter, you're guaranteed to get your question answered as well. So, Daniel, would you like to take the first question? Everyone in the chat, if you tag me, Chiblima, or Capt Bergerson, it'll help us see that you actually have a question and aren't just commenting to give an opinion. So we'll be able to tell it from the other chats. So yeah. Daniel, do you have one?
I do, but I'm just going to quickly mention first that Just Clark, who is awesome, by the way, thanks, Justin, he submitted a question, and I'm going to read his question but not answer it, and that's because we already did answer it through our conversation. We did extensively. So he asked us, what are some changes you'd like to see done to Skyward Sword HD? And so if you're just tuning in now or something, we definitely talked that point to death.
Why would you change something so perfect?
I sure had my laundry list out.
You mean you don't like collecting rupees and getting messages every time?
Every time.
Every single
it's just
time.
that reassurance from Vi, just always letting me know. Never will my batteries die, because she's always there for me.
See, that's the thing. Wind Waker HD had a very good system for low batteries. It just had a little thing in the corner of the screen. Anyways, so, I'm sorry. The actual question...
For a second, I was like, how are you playing GameCube on batteries?
Well,
I'm an idiot.
You could have a wireless GameCube controller. But...
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, this question comes from Nintendo. Yo. They asked, do you think that the Breath of the Wild saga will end with Breath of the Wild 2, or do you think Nintendo will make it into a trilogy, since we're not counting Age of Calamity? Also, just wanted to say thank you for the content that you make, and keep up the good work. Jesse, keep it up.
They help too. Just so you guys know, they help too.
Sometimes. So I'll just start with that. Historically, they have never done that, really. Like, if they have a sequel game, a game with like the same link that's a direct sequel, typically there's, and then they kind of move on to the next thing, right? So you have Zelda 1 and 2, okay, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, okay, and then you move on. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, okay. Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, you've got a pair there. Twilight Princess, Link's Crossbow Training, I guess? You get that.
Well, it started as a sequel. So,
it started as a sequel, so yeah, in a way, right? Skyward Sword didn't get anything because they kind of made that game, and they kind of like reevaluated their entire franchise, and then came out with Breath of the Wild instead. So, in a way, this is already sort of unprecedented in the fact that we've got a spin-off in the form of Age of Calamity already, and we're already getting the sequel to Breath of the Wild. So I almost feel like we already kind of are getting more than we typically do. And given Aonuma's sort of outlook currently on shaking things up as much as he can, which is a good outlook, shakeups are good. I think there's a part of me that thinks we're going to see the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and then that's going to be it. It's going to be the next thing. But I will never say never with Nintendo, because they do what they want, and so it's entirely possible. But I personally don't think so. But that's me.
All right, Chubes, what do you think?
Danny made some really good points thinking about it. I was honestly a little bit surprised they were even going to do a second one, so I don't think that's going to go further than this one.
All right.
But we'll get DLC.
So... Of course! Why would it be without DLC?
Yeah, I think DLC will be announced and available day one, just like it was for the original Breath of the Wild. You have to have that Nintendo Switch shirt.
Yeah.
So I think it all depends on... So before Breath of the Wild, the highest selling Zelda game was Twilight Princess, and it had like 6 or 7 million sold. Breath of the Wild has over 22 or 23 million sold so far. Mm-hmm. And even Age of Calamity, which is a spin-off that plays, although it has the same world and characters as Breath of the Wild, the actual gameplay and progression system, everything is completely different. And in just pre-orders alone, that game sold more pre-orders than the first Hyrule Warriors on 3DS, on Wii U, and the Definitive Edition on Switch. All three of those together, their entire lifetime sales, if you add it all together, still doesn't add up to just the pre-orders for Age of Calamity. And I think it had like 3 or 4 million pre-orders just for Age of Calamity. So if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, and after a year, if it doesn't have like 20 million sales, like Breath of the Wild, the original, does, then like if it does get there, I think we will get a Breath of the Wild 3, because Nintendo, like at that point, Zelda's sold 3 to 4 times as much as the previous best-selling game, and it's priced $10 higher as well, and they also release Amiibo for it and DLC.
Money.
So that's even more money for them to sell. And I don't think they would want to take the risk from going from, like, at this point in time, Breath of the Wild probably get a boost from Breath of the Wild 2 coming out, so people would go and buy the original just to get caught up. So by the time Breath of the Wild 2 releases, I could see Breath of the Wild being close to like 25, like if a miracle happens, maybe even close to 30 million, but that would kind of be up there. But just saying, if that did happen, then I don't think like Nintendo would want to take the risk of doing something completely different or new and it only selling, like, as even Age of Calamity, which has sold almost as much as Twilight Princess did, which was their previous best-selling game. Even though that's good by comparison, because that's almost your previous best-selling game, I don't think they would want to take like that leap back down, because for everyone that's buying the game, you also have a good portion that's also going to buy the DLC. You also have a good portion that's going to buy multiple Amiibo. So you're not just getting the $60 for the game, you're getting $15 for the Amiibo and $20 for the DLC. If they have a second DLC pack, that's $20 more. So you get all of that money. And if they release something new that's not Breath of the Wild related and it doesn't do that well, then that's like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars Nintendo's going to miss out on, when they could have just spent that time, instead of making something completely new, just reuse the same engine again and develop Breath of the Wild 3, which would take even less time and be a lot faster than it would have been to just make something completely new. Because you would have to come up with a new art style, come up with a new Hyrule, and everything. So, yeah, if Breath of the Wild 3 sells or if Breath of the Wild 2 sells only like half as much as the normal Breath of the Wild, then I could see Nintendo going and doing something else, because the risk wouldn't be as high. But if it sells just as much as Breath of the Wild, then I think Nintendo would do a Breath of the Wild 3. And Monolith Soft, who helped on Breath of the Wild, they started their own Zelda team. We don't know if, I don't think Nintendo would make Monolith Soft's Zelda team an official Zelda team if they were just going to continue doing the same thing that they were already doing for the past 2-3 years. Why make it official for that out of the blue for no reason, if they're just going to continue doing the same thing? So I think they made it an official Zelda team so they could start on their own project, and maybe that project is a new Zelda game. Or maybe since they were so familiar with the original Breath of the Wild, helping create the overworld and everything, maybe that's the boost, that like a head start on Breath of the Wild 3, while Nintendo's team works on Breath of the Wild 2. That way, when it releases, instead of waiting 5 years for Breath of the Wild 3, you're only waiting 2 because Monolith Soft already spent 2 or 3 years working on Breath of the Wild 3. So, yeah, that's how I see it. It all depends on the sales.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, that was long. I'm sorry.
No, it honestly makes sense though, because like I said before with Skyward Sword, right? The game didn't like they really thought that game was going to sell, and it did not. It just it was very underwhelming, and I think that was sort of the push for them to kind of take a look and reevaluate where they were going with the series. And then they took a lot of fan feedback and came out with Breath of the Wild, which sold like crazy. And so I think that those sales numbers are meaningful to them. Like I think they just as much as just like the fan feedback.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense to me.
And the reason...
I don't think it's so much a money thing so much as it's, Nintendo, that like those numbers is basically what reflects how the game is doing for them and how worth it is to continue for the fan base, right?
And the thing with Skyward Sword that you mentioned, Daniel, is Twilight Princess became the best-selling Zelda game really quickly, even towards the beginning of the Wii's life cycle.
Right.
And it launched with the Wii when, no one had a Wii. They were buying the Wii to play Zelda, or they were buying Zelda to play on the Wii. And when Skyward Sword released, there was already like 100 million Wiis out there instead of starting at 0. So they thought, if Twilight Princess sold this well when hardly anyone had a Wii, then Skyward Sword should automatically sell that much in like the first year. And it didn't sell like even half. So yeah, that's why.
And you kind of bring up a good point too, is that I think yeah, like Skyward Sword was initially meant to kind of continue the train with Twilight Princess, right? And I was just looking it up here. So Phantom Hourglass, for example, sold 4.13 million units, and that's its sort of total. So then they came up with another DS game shortly after, Spirit Tracks. That only sold 2.61 million. So just slightly more than half. So then when the 3DS comes along, they make another, or even still further into the DS's life cycle. It still had some time left in it before the 3DS came out. They didn't churn out another iterative DS Zelda game. I think at that point, again, they kind of looked at things and were like, okay, what adjustments do we need? What kind of shakeups do we have to make? Because this didn't resonate with people again. So we got a super chat by Carrie. Yes, thank you. $5 says, do you guys think we'll see a continuation of the Demise's curse after Breath of the Wild 2 or something else? If no, where could you see them going with the story? That's a tricky question, because I feel... Yeah, yes? Go on.
I say yes. Just because you look at all of the other big bad guys in Zelda games, and they're usually never reused again. But that's mostly because we never visit those lands again.
Right.
Like, you're not in New Hyrule, you're not, like, wherever the ghost phantom ship takes you in Phantom Hourglass. Right. You're not in Termina, you're not in Koholint Island, all of these places. But Demise was in Hyrule. And theoretically, as long as Ganondorf or whoever exists, then like the spirit of Demise is still coming around. So yeah, who knows? I think they could go back to it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't see Ganon as a villain going anywhere. That's like taking Bowser out of the Mario franchise. Maybe they'll sidestep occasionally or do something else, but at the end of the day, he's a staple, and I don't see him going anywhere or being ejected from the series or anything like that. And so, I mean, really, the curse of Demise, it would be that an incarnation of his hatred would plague, those with the blood of the goddess and the spirit of the hero. So Link and Zelda, right? Or Zelda and Link, I should say. And so, as long as we have a villain, technically, we have Demise's curse, really. It's kind of a sort of one of those like retcons that, well, not really a retcon. It's one of those like things that kind of injected that has, it's very sort of vague and a sort of an umbrella thing. But yeah, as long as, you know, Ganondorf and Ganon exist, technically he's the symptom of Demise's curse, as it were. So so I could see it continue. And obviously we've got dehydrated Ganon here, so
dehydrated
so
Ganon.
he's still around. Yeah.
Tubes.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I could see them continuing it. It just, like you said, like, it makes sense. Like, with Ganon still being around, Demise is bound to be around. My brain is starting to fizzle because I haven't eaten dinner yet.
Oh,
what?
Yeah.
Eat food.
Eat food. Technically, I think we'll do just one more question. That way we'll each get to a question. But Daniel, do you want to, before we do this, Tubes, you can start looking for a question to answer. And Daniel, you can finish what you were saying before the very gracious super chat.
Oh, I think I was pretty much done with that.
Oh, okay.
Just talking to. So, yeah.
While Tubes is looking, I will say with Skyward Sword and Demise, if they do a thing to where, like, you have at the time it was the biggest beast form of Ganon in Twilight Princess, and then you fight literally the biggest beast form of Ganon in Breath of the Wild, and Twilight Princess came right before Breath of the Wild, or at least the HD version. So with Skyward Sword HD, maybe something similar could carry over to Skyward, or to Breath of the Wild too. So yeah, like if like how could you get just from a look, not necessarily the boss fight, because a lot of people didn't really like the boss fight, but just from like the look of the boss, how could you get more intimidating than like a 500-foot giant beast Ganon? Like if if dehydrated Ganon just turns into Ganon again, then it's like, if it's the same beast Ganon, no one, like, it's gonna suck. But if Demise somehow comes out of Ganondorf, then that would be interesting, especially if it's another epic sword fight with lightning everywhere. Lightning's already everywhere, never mind. It's always storming in Hyrule.
A fun sword fight, my favorite.
Yeah. Tubes, did you find a question?
I sure did. So I figured Jelly sent a question to the mailbag, and actually quite a few, so I figured that we would pick at least one, because I think it's very nice that they went out of their way and put all these nice questions out. So I am going to pick their second question, which is, how do you think they might reintroduce music in this game? And I think that is a very interesting question, because the way that they did it in the first Breath of the Wild was so well done, in how it was just like, you were very like immersed and it was very subtle, but at the same time they still would tie in key elements from like past songs that they had used. So I'm hoping to probably see more of something like that. I don't really expect them to have like full, you know, length soundtracks or anything like you'd see from another Zelda game.
I think,
but do they mean like music, like just, I mean, from the phrasing, it just seems like you said, kind of umbrella, or do they mean like more specifically, like if you got to play music, like if you had an instrument again? Because that kind of changes my answer depending on which they mean. But I don't know. They don't specify like having an instrument, I guess.
Yeah, the way that I read it, I was thinking of like overworld music.
Right.
But you're right. It could totally be like an ocarina.
Yeah, Jess, I'm still percolating. Jesse, you were gonna say something.
the first idea that Tubes had, I'll give a quick answer for both while Daniel's thinking, and we'll get to the super chat from Brandon here in just a second. We'll do a quick answer to that before we go. But with the way to reintroduce like overworld music, I think it would be a cool idea. Everyone thinks that now that you've defeated Ganon, saved Hyrule, there'll be a lot of rebuilding, kind of like with Tarrytown in Breath of the Wild 2, to where things may end up looking similar to what they did in Age of Calamity, but different because it's rebuilt instead of the original. So if they did something to where, like, you can get hints of past songs in Breath of the Wild songs, like you get hints when you're around Lon Lon Ranch, you get hints of, or not the ranch, but around the different ranches or stables. You get hints of the Temple of Time theme or the Song of Time when you're around the Temple of Time. So, like, as things get rebuilt, if those hints of the songs start to get more and more prominent, then I think that would be a really cool way to show the progression of rebuilding Hyrule through the progression of the tones that are underneath the song coming out as well. So I think that would be a really cool way. And then just give him an ocarina. Definitely no drums or skull guitars. Ocarina.
I like the big fish guitar. But
You know,
The skull guitar.
Good.
Yeah.
Good guitar.
And then have Cass teach him songs.
I really like what you said about if, like, rebuilding Hyrule, especially if it sort of makes progress throughout the game, like if he continually gets more and more rebuilt. But I honestly think that Breath of the Wild's soundtrack in general is really well done. And like, this is not to say that I don't like previous Zelda games musics, but those they do a very good job of making the music suit the game. And I don't think Breath of the Wild is an exception to that. And people complain, oh, it's so quiet or whatever. But that's kind of that is the game. The few sprinklings of musical themes we get are these sort of broken renditions of those songs, right? Like the Temple of Time ones, the example you gave. It's not just the Song of Time. It's like, it's this sort of melancholic version that's extremely, the chords are broken up, and I honestly think it's wonderful and it works. And my favorite bit is the riding horseback at night theme, where it's this just very simple sort of piano melody, and then they just sprinkle in the main Zelda theme in there. Just subtly, and it's marvelous. So it's but I could see as sort of Hyrule gets more rebuilt, they want to make the music suit the game. So if Hyrule starts to get more rebuilt, there might not be a place for those broken themes, those broken down pieces of music. So pretty much I'm just in agreement. Pardon the noise there. Brandon super chat. We were going to next, right?
Also,
and then we got a second super chat.
Yes, since we are going to quickly go through the super chats, you two, if you follow any of us on Twitter or if you're in the Discord, give us a question from you guys, each of you, and we will make sure that we will not just answer the question that you ask now, but we'll answer the question that you submit. We'll make sure that it gets to be the first questions on next week's Zelda Mailbag. So look forward to that. We have a really cool guest as well, but we're trying to keep this one under 2 hours, and we got about 5 minutes left. So Choobs or Daniel, do one of you guys want to take Brandon's first question really quick?
Sure, Choobs, go ahead.
Yeah,
I read the last super chat.
Okay. So, Brandon, super chats, $4.99. Do you think that Breath of the Wild 2 reusing the exact Hyrule again is something we misunderstood? That never made much sense to me. Reusing assets, sure. I feel like it makes sense because we're talking about rebuilding after Calamity Ganon. And I think for it to take place somewhere else, it would have to be very disconnected from what they did in the first place. Yeah, I think it makes sense that it's all going to take place in the same Hyrule. I'm
aligned with that, and I think that part of what Aonuma's said about it is not just that it's the same Hyrule, but they're working to make it still interesting and more impressive, were his words. And so I don't. It's not going to be like 1-to-1. Like your landmarks and everything's all going to be there, but I think in the finer details of things, there's a lot of spots in Breath of the Wild where there's just not like it almost feels like there should have been something there, but there wasn't.
What was the DLC thing that came with the first DLC pack?
The Master Trials?
The travel thing.
Travel Medallion.
Mm-hmm.
No, not the travel. But the thing that followed your steps all through Hyrule.
Oh, Hero's Path.
Yeah. So there was an interview where he mentioned something about the Hero's Path, and they said they would look at the data to see where people were going, where people weren't going, and the places that people weren't going, they were trying to think of ways to get people to go to those areas. That way, like 10 developers didn't spend 6 entire months creating this one spot that only 100 people went to. So I think those less uncharted areas are going to be the areas that now in Breath of the Wild 2 you'll see like a new settlement there, or you'll see something else. And I think I always use the example in the DLC for Breath of the Wild. You see sorry, I'm talking a little bit fast, but you see the shrines rise up out of nowhere. Like there was no shrines there before. Now there's new shrines for the Champions Ballad. All of the Sheikah Towers. There's no Sheikah Towers when you first start the game, except for like the first one after you do the thing, and then all of the Sheikah Towers come up, and like they're all just hidden underground. Where is the where could the water temple be in Breath of the Wild 2 if they do bring back temples? Well, there's no underwater exploration in Breath of the Wild, but if we did have underwater exploration like we may have in Breath of the Wild 2, now when you swim underneath Lake Hylia, there's suddenly a cave you can go into, and just like Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time, now there's the water temple. It's not that it wasn't there, it was just inaccessible before. The fire temple, like in Skyward Sword, it's built into the side of a mountain, or Dodongo's Caverns built into the side of a mountain. No, I think it's the Earth Temple in Skyward Sword, not the Fire Temple. But yeah, and then to get to the actual Fire Temple in Ocarina of Time, it's literally inside the volcano. So maybe like it's there inside the volcano, you just didn't quite have access to that spot in Breath of the Wild. And the same with a forest temple. Like if you went this way in Breath of the Wild 1, maybe you would have got lost and it sent you back to the beginning, but now there's a new path in Breath of the Wild 2 that'll take you to a new spot with the Forest Temple, or in Twilight Princess, it was literally built inside of a tree like the Deku tree was. And then for like an ice temple, there could be like an avalanche or snow melts away, kind of like the cave that goes down to where there's the Leviathan skeleton and the one shrine. So like maybe there's another one of those that pops up, and then now there's an ice temple that's built inside this ice mountain somewhere. So I think it'll be stuff like that, to where it's like the game will make sense in a way to where it's like it was always there, you just couldn't access it before.
Right.
So that's how I think it's going to be.
Games, there was like this big excavation, and they found like you could take like from a design standpoint, there's so many like just rock faces in the game that you could like build in like they excavated here sort of area and dig into the rock face and put a dungeon entrance there. It'd be like, oh, we were excavating. Look what we found! This whole thing. So I don't know. Like there's ways to do it.
Daniel, you have 2 seconds. Answer the final question.
Oh my gosh!
We just passed 2 hours.
There's no rush.
No. Okay. We got a super chat. Eduardo. We actually got another one too. But Eduardo asked, "Do you think Zelda should introduce a new main character? I think it would be hard for Nintendo to give Link a personality and character development." The thing is about Zelda is that, like a lot of the times we have with these new incarnations, technically, they have constantly throughout the Zelda franchise been introducing us to new main characters, because the Link from the N64 games is not the same Link as in Breath of the Wild. It's not the same Link in Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. So it's, in a way, they all possess the spirit of the hero, but they're not technically the same character. So I don't think that like they would or should or whatever. And if Link's not your main playable character, they should make it a spin-off. But I don't. The thing is, like, Link is like, he's like an Avatar character. He's intentionally kind of a plank of wood, because we're supposed to kind of just fill that role ourselves in a way. And so I think they already are doing that, right? And even the inklings of personalities that various Links have had are distinct from each other. And like Breath of the Wild Link is a glutton. Everyone knows that. He loves food. He loves his food. Yeah. And I don't know, like you could take like the concept art even of just the various Links, and Wind Waker Link's a little goofy, but he's a lighthearted character and he's a badass. Sorry, I said a bad word.
No, you're good.
And but he's a bit goofy at the same time. So it's I wouldn't say it's hard because they've been doing it for 35 years. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, not even just that, like, using Link and Zelda all the time as your main characters. They're reintroducing characters all the time. Like, your NPCs, sure, they're not main characters, but I think that they add enough to the story to keep it interesting.
Mm-hmm. And,
Give me Beetle.
Like,
Beetle.
One example I think of is, like, in Ocarina of Time, the first 3D Zelda game, you had Zelda and Sheik, which were the same character, but completely different. So I don't think Nintendo would have if they could make one character, two completely different characters, and have their own personality and everything, I don't think they're going to have that much trouble in Breath of the Wild 2. Yeah. But before we wrap things up, there was a question from the chat. It's not really a question, but it's Dragon Chi 26 says, are we going to get to more Patreon questions next podcast? Was hoping to hear more. So you did have a submission in the Zelda Mailbag, but it was an answer to a question that someone else asked about 2D remakes, which we answered the 2D remakes we wanted as the first topic of the podcast. But you can submit a question, and then we will use that question for a topic on the next mailbag. And the way that I've kind of thought about doing it is on normal questions. We will each take a question, and each question will just be answered by the person that answers it, and then someone else could just give their quick opinion after, like, yes, no, I agree, I disagree, whatever. But Patreon questions will be still answered by everyone like normal, and be the first to be answered. So with all of that out of the way, everyone, Chiblima, where can people find you if they want to see more from you?
Hey, yeah, I'm just flaunting my stuff. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Chiblima, where I post mean things about Skyward Sword because I'm apparently just like that. Also, my Twitch is twitch.tv/Chiblima with an extra A because I don't know how to spell. And every Saturday, Bergerson and I play a game that has been Minecraft lately, so we play that on his channel, so I'll let him promo himself to you.
True.
All right. Yeah, Daniel, where can people find you?
Righto. So every sort of social media is capped Bergerson, CAPTBURGERSON. It's like there's a burger and he is the captain of the ship, and that's my dad. And
you say that like, every time.
I do.
It's always great.
Thank you. Yes, so we do streams every Wednesday. Is Breath of the Wednesday over on my channel, and it's exactly what we sound like. It's a what we call a long play of Breath of the Wild, in which I take a long time to do anything. But I am trying to 100% the game again. I have done that before, but I haven't 100%ed on stream before. So we're doing that, and we're really taking our time with it. We're on like the 7th or 8th one, and I haven't even done any Divine Beast or the Master Sword. But we're working on it. But lots of Koroks have been found, so that's always good. Otherwise, as mentioned many times, I do also make videos, mostly Zelda videos on my own YouTube channel, and it's a fun time. Oh, I didn't say, yes, like Chui said, we co-op stream on Saturdays as well, so look out for that. But yeah, right now I'm in the throes of my dungeon design series, which means we're taking a look at starting with Ocarina of Time. We're going through every 3D Zelda game's dungeons, and each dungeon gets its own video, and it's like a review and a walkthrough and a retrospective and the theory and musical analysis, architecture, everything kind of rolled into one video, and they're really great. I'm really proud of them, and I'm just gonna, because this is my opportunity to shamelessly plug myself, I really only started that series in January, and that's really when we started seeing momentum on that challenge, or on that channel, I should say. We are now, as of me looking at my YouTube stats, 23 subscribers away from 1,000 on that channel for my first 1,000. So if anybody likes Zelda stuff, you know where to find it. It's there.
Yes, there is a link I just posted in. So I posted the Twitter URLs for everyone that's on the podcast, and I just now posted the YouTube link for everyone who wants to. Yay. If you can go and give Daniel a subscribe, because if you like the videos on this channel, Daniel helps out with editing and coming up with ideas and stuff on a bunch of our videos on here. So if you like the videos on here, then you're automatically going to like the videos on his channel, so you can go there and subscribe and help him get over 1,000 subscribers, because that is the first big goal for YouTube. So help him do that. And do you have anything else, Daniel?
Just my final point to add, if you're unsure if that kind of series of videos is going to be your jam or not, my newest episode premieres at 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So if you have 17 minutes to spare to watch a video tomorrow morning, catch that one. It's talking Dragon Roost Cavern, is where we're at in Wind Waker. So yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time.
Yeah, so it's 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, and
yes,
I'll be there too. It's not a normal upload; it's a premiere, so you'll be able to watch it live with everyone else, and there'll be a comment box like this, and I'll be there too, so we can all talk about the video. So it'll be fun for everyone, right?
It will be. It will be fun.
And for me, everything is at 𝐵𝐻𝐼𝐺𝐻𝐿. I posted links. I posted Chibalima's and then Daniel's and then mine for Twitter, so you can go find that. And yeah, exactly. Follow the airplane lady with the flags. Yes. That's what it reminded me of.
The lady of many glasses.
Yeah. So also, please, if you can, leave a review on iTunes. I think we're about to pass the goal that we were originally told to pass, but this year it doesn't really matter. But with our luck, next year it'll be like twice as high. So every review that you can leave helps, and we also read every review on iTunes at the beginning of the next podcast as well. So you can do that and get a shout out if you want. And if you join our Discord, there's a link in the description. That's where you can put all of your Zelda Mailbag questions and stay up to date on when the podcast is going to go live and everything like that. So yeah, everyone, thank you so much for watching. There was over 200 of you at one point. Now that Daniel and I know to schedule a stream and let everyone know that it's going to happen at least a few hours before we actually go live, then people will actually show up. So yeah, thank you guys. It was really awesome, and it was fun to have a Chubes on here again. And we have we may be having a special guest next week, but maybe not.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Ominous.
See you guys. Have a great night.